Bantarak greets the President of the Republic of Ghana on his country's independence anniversary. The Consulate General of the Sultanate of Oman in Australia confirms that all Omani citizens and students residing in New Zealand are fine. And Oman oil price exceeds $66 per barrel as global prices rise by 5% after OPEC Plus group decides to maintain the current oil production levels. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo of the Republic of Ghana on his country's independence anniversary. The Consulate General of the Sultanate of Oman in Australia confirmed that all Omani citizens and students residing in New Zealand are fine, as the island nation faced a series of earthquakes. The consulate said in a statement that it would like to reassure everyone that all Omani nationals and students on scholarships in New Zealand universities are fine after a series of earthquakes that hit the far north of New Zealand. The consulate calls on all citizens and students on scholarships in New Zealand to take precautions and avoid the beaches and all coastal places, especially near the city of Auckland, and to follow all the instructions issued by the concerned authorities. A powerful series of undersea quakes struck northeast of New Zealand today, but tsunami waves that forced many people on the country's North Island to flee to high ground passed without causing substantial damage. Officials had warned that waves could reach 3 meters above high tide levels after the quakes, the strongest a magnitude 8.1, but the threat had passed by the afternoon. Earlier today, workers, students, and residents in areas like Northland and Bay of Plenty on the northern coast near Auckland fled beachside towns for higher ground after the 3 quakes striking in an 8-hour period triggered blaring tsunami sirens and warnings to evacuate via text messages. An emergency alert was issued for coastal areas around the South Pacific country of 5 million people, with people to stay away from the water's edge. A decade ago, a magnitude 6.3 quake killed 185 people in the South Island city of Christchurch. Oman oil recorded an increase by $3.37 to arrive at $66.41 per barrel, a record high since 1.5 years as the global demand for oil has significantly increased. International oil prices also increased by 5% to reach $67.77 per barrel after OPEC Plus decision to maintain the current oil production until the end of April. The OPEC Plus decision has improved the U.S. crude oil price by $1 to arrive at $64.87 per barrel. OPEC made a decision last year to lower the production in March as the majority of industrial sectors were impacted by the pandemic. The overall production last year reached 9,700,000 barrels per day. OPEC also decided this month to lower the daily oil production even further to 7 million barrels. The Ministry of Health continues its vaccination campaign against coronavirus COVID-19 throughout the country, and the duration between the first and the second dose has been extended to 10 weeks. More details in the following report.
COVID-19 vaccination continues across the Sultanate, where many have been receiving their shots. In the meantime, the duration between the first dose and the second dose is been extended to 10 weeks for both vaccines, Pfizer-BioNTech and AstraZeneca. Hence, the second dose of all targeted group will be given on the 10th week. On the other hand, the efforts exerted to complete the first phase of this national vaccination campaign against COVID-19, the Minister of Health has started to expand the target groups to include older persons aged 60 years and above in all governorates, regardless of whether they are healthy or suffering from any chronic diseases.
I'm so happy. I have to take my vaccine, and I'm 100% sure I'm in a safe side, and also it's protecting me. Also, it's good for the other, protect the other. And I will come back after 10 weeks for the next dose.
It's worth mentioning that the second dose of vaccine is absolutely essential because it triggers the necessary immune response. Therefore, everyone has to complete the second dose on time. Both the Pfizer-BioNTech and AstraZeneca vaccines significantly reduce severe illness, hospitalization, and death in older adults and offer protection against the variant.
Still to come on News Bulletin. A zero-waste restaurant in Morocco keeps customers happy for the efforts of the owner in preserving the environment. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Europe's drug regulator launched a rolling review of Russia's Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine yesterday, putting it on the course to be the first non-Western jab used across the 27-nation EU. Russia quickly said it was ready to provide jabs for 50 million Europeans as soon as the shot gets the green light from the Amsterdam-based European Medicine Agency, EMA. Moscow has pushed Europe to follow the lead of dozens of countries around the world that have approved Sputnik, but Brussels has been worried that the Kremlin will use the vaccine as a soft power tool. The EU has so far authorized 3 vaccines: the US-German Pfizer-BioNTech jab, US firm Moderna's shot, and the British-Swedish AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. It is set to decide on the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine on March the 11th, while jabs by Novavax and CureVac are also under rolling review. German Health Minister Jens Spahn said today that drug manufacturers must honor vaccine supply contracts to Europe, but said Germany had not yet had any reason to stop shipments of the shots produced domestically to other countries. Spahn told a weekly news conference he had not yet been able to speak to his Italian counterpart about a decision by Italy to block a shipment of AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine to Australia. The president of Robert Koch Institute for Infectious Diseases, Luther Weiler, warned at the same news conference that there was currently a shift in the spread of the virus. Weiler urged Germans to get vaccinated and said all vaccines approved in Germany were safe and efficient. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Germany increased by 10,580 to almost 2.5 million. The reported death toll rose by 264 to 71,504. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced today that the government was extended a state of emergency in Tokyo region for another 2 weeks due to COVID-19 patients straining medical services. At a government coronavirus task force meeting, Suga said that the emergency state will be extended through to March the 21st for Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures, where the ongoing measures was to end on Sunday. He said medical systems in the region were still burdened with COVID-19 patients and more hospital beds have to be freed. Japan has never had a mandatory lockdown but has managed to keep infections relatively low with social distancing and other voluntary measures. Tokyo today reported 301 new cases, up from 278 the day before, raising its total to 112,925. Nationwide, Japan reported more than 436,000 cases and about 8,000 deaths as of yesterday. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said the government will on Sunday lift a lockdown in the country's largest city of Auckland, which was prompted by just 1 new case of the coronavirus. Ardern imposed a 7-day lockdown on the city of 2 million last Saturday, continuing its go hard, go early response throughout the coronavirus crisis. 2 more locally transmitted cases were subsequently reported, but no new cases have been reported in the last 5 days. Ardern's approach has been credited with making New Zealand one of the most successful countries in the world at controlling the spread of the coronavirus, but the latest shutdown has been criticized by some on social media as several sporting and culture events have been called off. New Zealand has reported just over 2,000 cases of the coronavirus and 26 deaths since the start of the pandemic. At the end of a day worth of cooking, staff at the Zero Waste restaurant in Morocco collect the vegetable peels and skins rather than throwing them out. Some of the excess vegetable peelings are fed to the mules that pull carriages in the streets of the Moroccan city. The owner of the Heli Campana Zero Waste restaurant, Malik Sahrawi, wants to serve customers organic dishes while contributing to protecting the environment. Every day, he brings a basket of organic fruit and vegetables from his farm, which is located some 30 kilometers outside the city. Excess vegetable peels are collected and sent back to his organic farm to make compost. To minimize the amount of waste that is produced at the seaside restaurant, Sahrawi is very selective about what he brings into the kitchen. No plastic is allowed at the restaurant and no trash is taken out. Sahrawi said customers enjoy their dishes, but they are more impressed with the concept behind the restaurant. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's news bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq greets the President of the Republic of Ghana on his country's independence anniversary. The Consulate General of the Sultanate of Oman in Australia confirms that all Omani citizens and students residing in New Zealand are fine. And Oman oil price exceeds $66 per barrel as global prices rise by 5% after OPEC Plus group decides to maintain the current oil production levels. And with the end of tonight's news bulletin, we would like to remind you one more time to keep following the precautionary measures of wearing face masks, washing hands, and keeping physical distance from each other. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, thank you for watching and have a good night.